So I once had this friend that was such a bad binge eater. She said that anytime she did poorly on an exam in college or something was going on with her relationship, she would immediately, like literally, it did not matter the time of the day, 3 a.m. or 11 p.m. or the middle of the day, breakfast, whatever, she would literally drive over to McDonald's and she would get the biggest, greasiest burger she could find and a ton of fries with a milkshake. And she would just wash that down and feel disgusted with herself. But she would first binge the emotion, this kind of frustration, this self-hatred, just this kind of angst about life. And then sometimes she would also purge. Now in today's video, I want to share with you a couple strategies you can use if you do find yourself to be a little bit of a binge eater. Now I would classify that as a moderately serious binge eater. I mean, there is obviously binge eating that can destroy you, that can kill you. But I think for many of us, the people asking the question on how do you stop binge eating, I think for a lot of people, it's more about how do I stop eating a lot of the wrong food I don't want to be eating when I'm stressed or whatever. What's up guys, it is Alex here, author of Master the Day. Now the very first thing really when it comes to binge eating is to always figure out what triggers it, right? It's like if I'm doing drugs, and I'm comparing food to drugs, which is kind of a similar comparison, but also not a very good one. If I'm comparing food to drugs, and if I'm hitting a crack pipe every day for some reason, then I probably need to figure out why I'm doing that. Now it may be because the body physiologically craves it, but at the start it wasn't. At the start, a pretty common one is stress, or dealing with the anxieties and frustrations of life. And the way I actually have a person figure out what their binge eating triggers are is by having them, something I've shared before, carry around an index card. So either carrying around your index card or carrying around your phone, and whenever you find yourself engaging in this kind of binge eating behavior, you do two things. The first thing is you write down what you were just doing. So, okay, it was Monday, 3 p.m., and I was sitting at work or I was sitting in class, and I suddenly felt the urge to eat a ton of something sweet. So I went to the vending machine and I had 3 Snickers bars. Okay? Write down the event, what just happened, and then also write down what you were doing and what you were feeling. Because very often, binge eating, like true binge eating, is linked to some kind of emotion that's being dealt with. A lot like somebody who's a drug addict who's just can't handle the stress of life and they have to hit the pipe to relax. It's very similar in an emotional sense. So all of us cope with the up and down emotions of life in a bunch of different ways. And one of them is food, another one is drugs. There's a lot of different ways in between those two. But the first thing is figure out what the triggers are. And very often you find out they're one of two things. They're often stress and anxiety. It doesn't matter if the anxiety is about your life, your relationship, about work, about something else. It's the emotion of stress and anxiety, the lack of control there. Or it's often about boredom. Now, the people I know that are like true clinical binge eaters generally do not binge eat just from being bored. That's kind of like an ordinary person, I ate a bunch of sugar because I'm watching TV or I'm working on a boring project. That's more common in just the average level of binge eating. But the first thing is figure out your triggers. Now the second thing here is to remove the trigger, or what's called swap the routine. Now removing the trigger is basically if you realize, okay, you went through that exercise, you carried around the card, you carried around the phone, and you realized, okay, my binge eating trigger is stress and anxiety around work, or stress and anxiety around school, or I get stressed out or I get really bored late at night, 9 o'clock. That is your trigger. That's classified as your trigger of the eating behavior. Now, the first thing you can do is actually remove the trigger. So if it's stress that causes you to binge eat, much like how stress may cause another person to watch TV or to do drugs or to want to go exercise, if stress is what causes it, deal with the stress, right? So if stress triggers the behavior, if there is no stress on a daily basis, since there is no trigger, the behavior will not happen. So it comes down to really knowing yourself and really figuring out, beneath it all, what is causing this for you and dealing with the actual origin. Much like any good doctor would do, they see that you're binge eating, and rather than giving you a pill or something for anxiety, figure out, well, what's causing the anxiety? Is it about life? Is it about work? Is it about a guy or a girl? Figure out what's actually behind that and deal with it. Now, the other thing you can do is what's called swapping the routine. Now, in swapping the routine, the reason for binge eating is basically there's some kind of trigger, like stress, we binge eat, and as a result, we feel at least temporarily a sense of relief. So the trigger, let's say stress, binge eat, relief. The other thing you can do is rather than using the binge eat part in the middle to get to the relief over here. The trigger is stress, you put in something new that helps you blow off stress, and then you still get that sense of relief. So for some people, what I found, it can be as simple as taking a walk around the block. That disables that whole kind of circuit. If you want, it can be sex. If you want, it can be TV. If you want, it can be a million other things, a hobby, going out with friends instead. But the underlying fundamental philosophy is still the same. You know the cycle, the trigger, the behavior, the binge eating, and then the reward, that sense of relief. And then what you do is you can either remove the trigger, like if it's stress, you can deal with the stress in a healthy way, or you can deal with the trigger. For example, you can let yourself get stressed out, but instead of the binge eating to de-stress, you can use a new kind of method and test it out to see what works for you. Try out playing video games if you're stressed out. Try out going out with friends. Shoot one of your friends a text and decide that you're going to go out, go get dinner, go hang out, go get drinks, whatever. Something that short circuits that cycle. So that's what I would recommend to focus on if you are a binge eater. Those are some of the ways, but ultimately it always comes back to the same thing, and that thing is insight. It's about knowing yourself, having the awareness of what is actually behind the behavior. And once you have the awareness, then it's pretty easy to actually figure out, okay, I can try a couple of strategies now to help me get that same reward out here. So I hope that helps, guys. Before you go, leave a comment right there below. For you, what does your binge eating behavior look like if you do it or when you do it? Comment there below. Hey guys, it's Alex. Did you like this video? If so, there are really two ways you can stay in touch with me. The first thing is to go over, click the monk, and subscribe so you get the next video right when it's out. I'm releasing at least 3 videos per week, but often a lot more. The next thing is, come on over and check out my book, Master the Day. It's called Master the Day, Eat, Move, and Live Better with the Power of Daily Habits. And it's all about the tiny daily success habits that I learned interviewing people that lost over 100 pounds and kept it off years later in a healthy way. The success habits that not only get your dream body, but also your dream life. And as a special thank you, if you get the book, send me your receipt to alexander@modernhealthmonk.com. I'll send you a 1-hour bonus video course for free, and one important piece of it is an hour sit-down success story with my friend and my student Mike, who lost 30 pounds. So you can go check that out on Amazon right there. The next thing is, come on over to my site, modernhealthmonk.com. I've got a free guide for you there, 5 daily habits to help you lose your next 20 to 30 pounds. And otherwise, I look forward to seeing you soon.